Yep. All right. I mean.
All right, somebody just.
Downstairs. She's sort of. Welcome to the Lambs Club, which is in a building with many clubs, and our main club is the Women's National Republican Club. In the building there is a pub that serves food and drink. You can go down there. What I noticed though is that it's a buffet tonight, and they probably have, you know, for a set price, you're going to see amazing food there. But you know, be aware that that's their buffet that they're offering to everybody. And probably they'll do it for you too, but it might be like a $40 investment, but worth it. I could see from the seafood. There is the regular menu. I checked in with Gilberto, our bartender. So you're welcome to go downstairs. They take credit cards, and you can order food and drink after the show. That's on 2M. And I would just ask that there's an awareness of a buffet atmosphere, and sometimes I feel like taking the food myself. Okay.
The kitchen closes at 10, so food orders would have to be before that.
Yeah,
so
food orders
before
10. Yeah, and you know, meet people, meet your fellow. Probably when you were children and you all used to go to the cotillions, they were. You'll meet a lot of your friends from those days. The other thing is, this is the Lambs Club. The real Lambs are here. The former Lambs home is now called the Lambs Club. We are the continuity of a club that began in the 1870s, actually. First with Charles and Mary Lamb in England, and then the actors who came to the United States carried on their tradition of the salons. We have a foundation, a tax-exempt foundation that you can contribute to, and in fact, we asked for you a suggested contribution for tonight would be $5. We'll pass that around later. And we welcome you to the Lambs, and we're going to be waiting a little bit longer and then start in about 5 minutes. Thank you, Linda.
East River Savings Bank. There's one next to it. It's called the Williamsburg Savings Bank. That's the one that is part of Open House New York this year. I think for the first time they're opening up that.
He's been with us. This is the Entertainment Committee of the City of New York. I'm the chair. My name is Peter Dizozza, and we're proud to present a new work by our most esteemed writer of our 12th night shows. It's Myron D. Cohen, and his new work, The Psychic Murder Case. It's a psychic murder musical mystery play. We are grateful to all the cast and grateful for you to be here, and hope it gives you a lesson as well as entertain you. And now, on with the show.
I'm a neighbor. I've been living on the neck for many years. I'm retired now, but I used to be a tri-lawyer. I commuted into Manhattan on the Long Island Railroad from Cold Spring Harbor. Matter of fact, I was a commuter even before Governor Rockefeller vowed to make it the best railroad on Long Island. I don't know if you ever traveled on the Long Island Railroad in the 1960s, but it was not a conveyance for sissies. They tell the story about the guy that was rushing for a train, slipped and fell under the wheels of the last car. A priest was nearby, came to offer last rites. He says to the fellow, "My son, if you've lived a good life, you're going to be in heaven very shortly. If you haven't, you're going to the other place." Poor guy looks up and he says, "That's okay, as long as I don't have to change to Jamaica." I practiced law for 41 years. I represented malefactors of great wealth for the same reason Willie Sutton robbed banks. In all that time, I only represented one woman, but she was a doozy. I thought you might like to hear about that case because it made headlines all over the country. I don't think my wife has ever fully forgiven me for taking her on. Martha's a good woman. We've been married more than half a century. Sometimes it seems longer. There she is now, finishing breakfast. You know, it all started in our kitchen. I was just finishing up my last cup of coffee.
Stop mumbling to yourself, Harry. Your coffee's getting cold.
Okay.
And you still have a little time before you have to go to the office.
I know. I seem to be going in later and later.
Is work getting to you?
Oh, it's just paperwork. I'm lucky to get on trial twice a year.
Well, why don't you retire? You've talked about it often enough.
Well, what am I going to do? Raise flowers? Move to Florida? I'm not ready for God's waiting room yet.
Oh, come on, Harry. What's the matter? If you can't tell your wife, who can you tell?
Well, I'll tell you. It's the same old stuff I've been doing for years. You know, it's just large companies suing other large companies, and the older I get, the more money is involved, so nobody wants to go to trial, and we just paper each other to death. I think I'm just bored with it all.
You know, this isn't like you. You never used to complain, even when we first started out. Except about the commuting.
Yeah, but when I started out, it was very interesting because I was on trial. The money wasn't that big, so you could get to a trial. It was just interesting work then.
Well, you were a trial lawyer when we met.
Yeah, defending people for legal aid. Sure, and that was terrific. That was terrific because I was on trial all the time. It was lovely. That's how I learned the business.
But you left.
Well, sure, for the money. Then I met you, the kids came, we moved to Lloyd Neck, I never looked back.
But you're not sorry.
No, of course not. And defending the accused was a long time ago. And you know what they say, it was in another country and beside the winch is dead. No, I've made accommodation to it all, and I'm willing to just play out the string.
Well, I just wish you were. Who could that be this early in the morning?
I don't know, I'll go sit.
Hello, Harry.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine. Come in, have a cup of coffee with us. What is it that it couldn't wait till I got to the office? Honey, this is Marty Lowell, a young partner of mine.
Hi, Marty. Cream and sugar?
Oh, just black, thanks.
Have a seat, have a seat.
Listen, I have a favor to ask you, and I thought I'd do it first here in an informal setting.
Well, I'm intrigued. Tell me about it.
Well, I have a friend who has the most peculiar occupation, and she's gotten herself in quite a situation, but I can't take this on unless the firm will let me do it, you know, if it gets approved by the firm.
I see. You need a senior partner to go to bat, and I'm the patsy du jour. Well, I still don't see why we couldn't have handled this at the office.
Listen, I wanted you to meet her first in an informal setting. She hardly knows any lawyers except me, and she's in a heap of trouble.
What kind of trouble is she in?
She's going to be indicted on a capital charge.
Murder? Well, we've had precious little experience with that.
Yeah, but Harry, look, just meet with her. If you decide we can't handle it, I'll just walk away.
Well, what's so special about her?
She's a psychic.
A what?
She's a professional psychic. She reads people's auras and then she predicts their past and their futures.
And this is someone you want us to represent?
You bet I do. It was up to me. I'd handle it in a nanosecond. I mean, the first time she met my wife, she diagnosed a serious illness that nobody else had ever found.
Was she right?
You bet she was. She had tests, she had surgery, she was cured. You could say the two of us are both believers.
Well, then then why is she in jeopardy?
She apparently was helping the police track down some fellow who had committed a murder, and then she saw something.
You're talking self-defense? Because she's a psychic, whatever the hell that is? Oh, I don't think so. I think you prefer not guilty by reason of insanity.
Harry, just meet with her. Just meet with her.
Oh, go on, Harry. You might add a little spice to your life.
This is ridiculous. Oh, all right. I'll meet with her for your sake. Where and when?
Well, listen, I think she's going to be arrested any minute. Could you meet with her on the way to work at the Harvard Club? I'll set it up.
Well, how will we recognize each other? Oh, of course. She'll recognize me by my aura.
Listen, scoff all you want. I didn't believe her at first.
And now you do?
You can say that I have a much more open mind.
Well, if you don't leave now, you'll miss your train. And I want to hear all about this tonight.
All right, all right. But when my partners hear about this, I'll be lucky to charge off breakfast. Coming for me, I'll be in the dining hall.
Very good, sir.
Mr. Edison.
That's me.
Hi, I'm Alice Meadows.
Well,
Marty Lowell suggested we meet.
well, how do you do? Can I get you a bite? Some coffee or something?
Sure, yes, coffee would be nice.
2 coffees.
Very good, sir.
Thank you.
Careful, things can get hot in here.
So, what can I do for you?
Well, has Marty told you anything about me?
Oh, I'm surprised you don't know.
Well, I do, actually, believe me.
It must be my aura, huh?
Well, yes, it is. And, well, what I'd like for you to do is agree for Marty to represent me when the government arraigns me for murder.
Well, look, first of all, there's no one in our firm, and that includes Marty, who has the expertise needed to represent you on a capital charge.
No, Marty is the only lawyer I know who has an understanding in my abilities and a belief in me to convince a jury that I did what I had to do to save myself.
But how are you so sure that you're going to be arrested and charged with murder?
Well, I know because I've seen it.
You've seen it?
Look, I know what you're thinking. You have no knowledge of paranormal activities. You can't possibly credit what your senses tell you doesn't exist. But I know what I'm talking about, Mr. Edison, and time, as you lawyers say, is of the essence. I will be arrested before the week is out, and I need for Marty to convince a jury that I did what I had to do because I was in fear for my life, because of what I saw in the aura of the man who was going to kill me, before he could dispose of me.
Well, you're certainly convincing with regard to your belief in your own abilities, and Marty goes along with you. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get an associate at the firm to check out the law on paranormal activities to see if a defense such as you're suggesting is even possible in our jurisdiction.
And if it is?
Well, then I'll take it to my partners, and I promise to let you know in a couple of days. But I must tell you, I think you'd be much better off getting an experienced criminal lawyer who could see how a defense of psychic phenomena would play to a New York jury.
No, I need a lawyer who believes. And your partners will go along with Marty's representation of me. And so will you.
Well, how can you be so sure?
I see the future in your aura.
My aura? Well, what in hell is an aura when it's at home?
Well, it's sort of like, well, a rainbow. It's an energy that emanates from every living thing, and I've learned from experience what auras go with what feelings and happenings.
And you can read these auras?
Yes, all my life. It's like being born with an extra set of eyes.
Well, all I can say is it's going to be an interesting couple of days.
Will you?
Now there's only one donut left.
Yeah, but it's cream filled. You know they're my favorite.
Fine, but you owe me.
We can buy another box in half an hour. My treat.
You're a prince.
Finished the paperwork yet?
Almost. Damnedest case I ever worked on.
You know, we never would have gotten him. There was no hard evidence connecting him to his wife's murder. Hell, if it hadn't been for that lady, we'd still be searching for his wife's body.
I never believed in ghost stories. I thought it was bunk.
Well,
hell, if the captain hadn't insisted, I wouldn't even wanted to talk to her.
Well, she sure put an end to that case. Shot him right between the eyes.
It's all politics now. You know, the DA's dying to prosecute her. And of course, the Post and Newsday will have a field day with this stuff.
Doesn't it bother you, after all the help she gave us, having to arrest her?
Sure, but look, she's got no case. He didn't have a weapon. She shot him in cold blood. And what? Because she said his aura said he was going to strangle her? I mean, unless you believe in this psychic stuff.
Yeah, I know. Still, I don't know how the hell she knew what she knew. All we showed her was a couple of photographs of the victim and the crime scene. We showed her a picture of the husband and a bunch of other men who weren't involved.
Right, it was like a photographic lineup. And she picked the husband out right away. Then we showed her a picture of the dame, and a little bit of her clothing.
And we told her nothing about the victim, the crime scene, or the suspect. How the hell did she do it?
Damned if I know. But I'm telling you, if the captain says pick her up, we pick her up.
It's a shame. I really liked her. And if she hadn't offered to help...
Now look, maybe she can convince a jury. Hell, she convinced me.
No more talk. I'm hungry. Time for more donuts.
Protect her. What if she says that we're too vicious?
Are you a detective, a sleuth?
It's simply that we must not
be her buddy.
We must not tell her the truth.
No, we can't do that, Larry. She's a suspect now. Don't you get it?
I was starting to like her, although she is unusual. This is disappointing. She was getting to be a buddy.
Look, Larry, we've always been fine companions.
The evidence true.
We'll always be harmonizing like Sherlock and Watson.
Like Magic and Johnson.
Yeah, what if she says her powers have been growing since her youth? It simply will not be a good defense for her. We can't even tell her the truth. You know what? There was an escape. A psychic midget got out of custody.
No, really?
Yeah. Now she's a small, medium, and large. Well, buddy, we know that our days are numbered.
As the evidence mounts.
But now she's just a suspect, and that's all that really counts. What do we got here? Oh, did I ever tell you about the time I dated a psychic?
No, you never did.
Yeah, it was tragic. She broke it off a week before we met.
Okay, I got one. What did one psychic say to the other?
I don't know, what?
You're fine, thank you. How am I?
Well, Larry, I'll always be right beside you. You'll still be my pal. Though she won't admit she killed him.
She's denying it all, and we're on to her goal. And if I say that in my life you are so much of a star, it's simply that who else but a bosom buddy would tell you how clever you are.
Well, just turn to your bosom buddy for aid and affection,
for help and direction,
and
for
loyalty, love, and for soup.
remember that.
We together as bosom buddies will sit down and level and give her the devil will. Sit down and tell her the truth. Here, doll, have a donut.
So Evelyn, what have you come up with?
Well, of all the research assignments that I've undertaken with your firm over the years, this one is the most fun.
And?
Well, bottom line, you're not going to find a judge in New York State who will allow a psychic defense to murder to get to a jury. But if you did, you can bet that a clear majority of the jurors would take to it if your client was persuasive enough.
I don't understand.
Well, look at this. Everyone knows, everyone believes, or most people anyway, believe that people do have psychic powers. I mean, there's a tremendous case of professional psychics all around. They convince the credulous to invest money with them. They also get them to listen to their relatives who have died. I mean, it's just wonderful. You'd be amazed at how wonderful and how many people, how popular psychics are. I mean, there's the TV. They're all over TV. There's people who, and then there are these cops. Cops go to them for help. Can you imagine that? And then there are universities with professors who are really actively trying to see whether in certain conditions people demonstrate extrasensory perception.
What are the results?
Well, there's no aha moment. I mean, you know, most serious researchers believe that it's just intentional trickery or just self-delusion. But you know, I did read something in the U.S. National Academy of Science, and in 1988 they did have a report about this very subject.
What did it say?
Well, I'll tell you. Here it is. Oh, there is no scientific justification from research conducted over a period of 130 years for the existence of parapsychological phenomena.
So I don't get it. Why is it that you say, if I can find a judge that will allow this testimony in, that a jury will be convinced by a psychic if she's persuasive?
Because once, and only once, a professional psychic got to testify about her paranormal abilities in a civil case, and the judge and the jury bought it wholesale.
When was that?
Oh, a little while ago in Pennsylvania. There was this professional psychic, and she used to give readings to make a living, and she claimed a medical malpractice by a hospital had ruined her psychic abilities, and she sought damages.
Don't tell me she won.
Well, the judge did tell the jury they couldn't award damages on this issue.
And?
The jury was out less than an hour, and they awarded her almost $1 million. $1
million? Don't tell me she kept it.
Oh, of course not. No. I mean, the judge felt that the jury hadn't listened to his instructions, and he just tossed it. And then after a while, they had a retrial, but it was just dismissed. But you can see what happens if a jury is let go on a case with an attractive plaintiff who also happens to be a professional psychic.
That's a hell of a case.
Oh yeah, and you should have seen when word got around. The Republicans all over the country trashed it. They trashed even President Reagan got involved.
All right, listen, that's good enough for me. Why don't you write it up in a memorandum? I have to have a meeting with the partners tomorrow where we're going to be deciding whether to take on the case of a psychic who claims she killed someone in self-defense because of his aura.
Well, you know, you've got to have. Did he actually attack her?
I don't think so. I think that she just felt that he was going to because of the strength of his aura.
Well, did he have a weapon in his hand?
I'm not sure. You know, we have to do an investigation if we were to take this case on.
Well, you know, you've got to have more than an aggressive aura. I mean, you know, without a weapon in the hands of the victim, no New York judge is going to allow a plea of self-defense.
I hear you, but this is something I really want to do.
Why do you want this case, Marty?
Because I believe her.
Do you actually believe she has psychic powers?
Indeed I do.
Oh my God! Barnum was right. There's one born every minute. Oh my, come in. Oh, come in. Shirley, Edith, and Barney. Yes. Oh, come over here. Oh. Okay. So why won't Marty just admit the jury will not ever acquit? Anyone knows that Alice can't get the court to some plan.
Marty's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky.
So when the team is getting low, instead of letting go, just ask Marty to grant.
Lawyers here are nothing short of brilliant. Lawyers here are nothing short of brilliant. Lawyers here are nothing short of brilliant. If trouble calls and his back to the wall, Marty will stand by her if it is all.
He is a great defense lawyer. He can be a real destroyer. He is great on cross-exam. He's a bit of a ham.
Marty's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky.
So when the team is getting low, instead of letting go, just ask Marty to grant.
Lawyers here are nothing short of brilliant. Lawyers here are nothing short of brilliant. Lawyers here are nothing short of brilliant.
Marty's got all of the research done. He'll be trying some when he makes his motion. All he really wants is nullification.
Yes, and he may try some obfuscation and also some over-communication and finally some transliteration. He's done.
Well, Alice, I suppose you know by now that the firm has agreed to represent you in the event you were arrested and charged with murder, and I've been asked to assist.
Yes, I know. Marty called me this morning.
But of course, as you told me at the Harvard Club, you already recognized this as happening in my aura.
Well, yes, I had.
Well, look, now that we're finally embarked upon this venture, it's important for you to tell Marty and myself everything we need to know about your personal history and what you claim are clairvoyant powers.
Yes, I understand. Where would you like me to begin?
At a time when you first realized you had special powers.
I guess I've always realized I had special insights my friends didn't share. But even when I was a little girl growing up, I would see colored lights around people, and I would be able to tell from looking at these lights things that had happened and things that were going to happen. Even when I looked in the mirror, I could see my own aura. But this brought me a great deal of unhappiness growing up.
Why was that?
Well, I like to talk, and I was always telling people things I shouldn't.
And I guess sometimes people didn't like what you were telling them.
That's right. If you're born blind, people show you sympathy and compassion. But if you're born with an extra set of eyes, people are frightened by what you can tell them, and they lash out when they're afraid.
Did anyone else in your family have these psychic abilities?
Yes, absolutely. My mother and my grandmother both. Well, my mother was always trying to protect me by telling me not to volunteer information unless specifically asked. But I was very strong-willed, and I was always getting into trouble by sharing people's secrets.
Did you gain a reputation for extrasensory perception in your neighborhood?
Yes, absolutely. Well, my ability to read auras was well known among my family and friends. Pretty soon, my days and my evenings were given over to readings.
But after you grew up and you got married, you started charging people for these sensory conditions.
Yes, that's right. Well, it was taking up so much of my time that I actually felt like I needed to get a housekeeper, so I began charging a very modest fee.
And when you would see an aura, how would you interpret it?
By the colors in the aura?
You mean the different colors would have different meanings?
That's right. So the colors that I see in an aura are made up of hundreds and sometimes thousands of shades and flecks of other color. Well, I guess the best way to explain it is that, so sickness or cancer, it shows up in a person's aura as gray, but like hundreds of shades and flecks of gray. So if I would see this gray, I would tell somebody, get yourself to a doctor immediately and have yourself checked out.
You know, Harry, that's exactly what happened to us. Alice had seen something in my wife's aura. She had it checked out, and she was completely cured.
Oh, it's too bad you can't testify for us. Well, at some point in time, you sought out or began working with police departments, didn't you?
Well, the police would always come to me, and I would interpret what I saw in photographs that they'd show me.
You'd see colors in the auras in the photographs?
Well, that's right. So violence, for instance, it shows up in an aura as shades and flecks of red. And it would leave an impression on a photograph almost like a negative that I could read and interpret and tell a person's past. Oh, and I would always tell the police to please bring an article of clothing that would be worn by the victim.
How often were your services requested by the police?
Oh goodness, they must have called almost weekly for appointments.
And you say you never charged them?
No, never, and I always requested no publicity.
Why?
I was worried for the safety of my family.
So how do you suppose it is that Thompson learned of your involvement in his case?
Well, I suppose that one of those police detectives must have accidentally let the information slip.
Thompson?
Yeah, he's the accused in the case, the guy she...
I understand. Yeah. All right, now we come to the crux. I want you to tell Marty and myself everything you can recall about the events that you think are going to lead to your arrest.
Sure. So I got a call from the captain of the Port Washington Police Department asking for my help with an ongoing case. He said he couldn't tell me much except to say that a woman was missing and maybe I could help figure out where she was. So I went down to the station and I met with two detectives. I think their names were Sam and Larry. And they showed me a series of photographs of men and one of the missing women, and they gave me a blouse that belonged to her.
And what did you do?
Well, immediately I picked out the photograph of the man who I later found out was Jack Thompson. His aura in the photograph was absolutely frightening. You could tell he was a really bad man. And then I examined the photograph they had given me of the women and the blouse, and I could tell that they had been married and they had had a terrible fight over the course of which he had strangled her to death. I told the police when it had happened and where it had happened and where they could find the body.
That's some story. Had you ever fired the gun before?
Oh goodness, no. The gun had been in my desk drawer for almost 2 years.
All right, now, this is very important, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Did Thompson make any threatening gestures toward you? Did he do anything before you shot him?
If I could just go back for a second. Was there a time before that happened when you felt some threat by his aura that led you to shoot him or something?
Well, yes. So he came back to my office. He showed up in my office about a week later after I had spoken to the police, and he announced to my secretary and myself that I had informed the police that he had murdered his wife. I mean, I told him I had said nothing that could be used against him in a court, but he said he had seen television shows about psychics, and he knew that I wouldn't be satisfied until he had been quieted. I was terrified. I reached into my desk drawer where I kept a gun for emergencies, and I fired. And his aura was threatening.
Okay, now to get back to the question that Harry was asking you, had you ever used that gun before?
No, never. It had been in my desk drawer for 2 years.
Well,
unused.
You've certainly given us a lot to think about. I mean, I can't recall a case where a psychic claimed self-defense after shooting down an unarmed man.
You know, I'm firmly in your corner, Alice, but Harry's going to take some convincing.
Well, you're right about that. But I'm sure we can find some legal pigeonhole which will enable us to mount a credible defense in your favor.
Oh, Mr. Edison, I hope you can.
You mean you can't foresee that?
Well, I'm not a fortune teller, and I'm not right in every case. I leave certainty to the Lord.
I'm sorry to barge in, but there are 2 detectives in the waiting room. They're here to see the lady.
Show them in.
Sam and Larry, I've been expecting you.
I'm awfully sorry, Alice. You know how we feel about this.
But the DA has sworn out a warrant for your arrest on homicide charges. We gotta take it in.
I'll stay here with you, Alice. Harry, you better get the ball rolling.
All right. Judy, call my wife. I won't be home for dinner.
She's a psychic with a problem in her claim of self-defense. She can prophesy the future when an aura is intense. Must she test us with her story?
A psychic cannot see into the future, only what you'll do when you arrive there. The chance when confronted with the problem, I preempted in advance.
Every living creature has an aura she can see. No one can conceal it from her gift of prophecy. When she foils your evil plans, your aura is to blame. Everybody has one all the same. her understand, but we still believe.
adventures. They go to Aspen, hiking, and Boulder. Yeah. The pictures are beautiful.
You certainly got home late last night, Harry.
I know. Alice was arrested in my office.
Oh my God.
You know, I was up half the night with a couple of associates trying to get a handle on a defense for her. You know, a handle for the case.
Any luck?
Not a bit.
What's her story?
Well, simply put, she claims that her psychic abilities convinced her that the murdered man intended to strangle her, so she shot him point blank in the head.
Self-defense?
Well, he had no weapon. He made no threatening gestures. It all depends on whether you believe in paranormal activity.
And do you?
Oh, not a bit, not a bit. Let me tell you something. It was all I could do to keep from gagging as she told her story. I mean, I don't know about you. I've lived a long life and I never saw a ghost. This is all malarkey as far as I'm concerned.
What about Marty?
Oh, he believes it all. He believes everything she says. What he doesn't seem to understand is that if a judge won't allow her to testify as to her psychic abilities, we have no defense at all.
So what can you do?
Well, the obvious course of action in something like this is to hire a couple of tame psychiatrists, plead her not guilty by reason of insanity, let her testify, and then the two psychiatrists can testify she's crazy as a bedbug.
So why don't you do it?
Because she won't have it. And Marty believes in it wholeheartedly. He goes along with it. He thinks she's got all this psychic energy. And I want to tell you something. There isn't a judge sitting on the bench in New York that would allow her testimony in a criminal case like this.
Oh, poor Harry. I bet Florida is beginning to look a lot better to you right now.
Now, listen, I'll find some theory somehow that'll allow her to get to tell her story. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll find something. She'll tell her story, the jury will do justice. After all, the guy she killed was a cold-blooded murderer.
Really? Doesn't that depend on whether you believe in your client's extrasensory perception? I mean, after all, apparently the only evidence that he killed his wife is what she interpreted from the colors of his aura.
You know, I think I'm getting an eccentric headache.
You'll think of a solution on your way into the city on the train.
You know, maybe you better call Miami. Get a real estate broker. I think I would rather face alligators than the judge we've got in this case.
Sat on many cases like this one, Your Honor.
Just think, a real-life psychic and a murderous one at that.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if those sorts of people really existed?
Yeah, they could warn the public of impending disasters. You could tune in to the psychic weather forecast every night on the news.
Why, casinos around the world would close, and the lottery, every psychic would just pluck the numbers from the tea leaves.
Obamacare would be in big trouble. Psychic insurance agents could predict a cancer diagnosis, and the carriers would deny coverage based on a future existing condition.
Judge, you're meeting with the attorneys in a few minutes. Here in chambers or in the courtroom?
Right here. The DA's filed a motion to preclude testimony or any references by counsel to the defendant's so-called psychic abilities. This trial's gonna be better than sex.
Judge, it's 9. Should I bring them in?
Oh, yes. Henry, stay if you like. This ought to be good.
Assisting a district attorney friendly for the people, and Mr. Lowell representing the defendant, Alice Meadows, Your Honor.
Welcome, gentlemen. Have seats.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thought we'd have a little chat regarding the DA's motion in limine before we get started. I'm not ready to rule, but I thought it would be helpful for the three of us to talk before we started with jury selection.
Delighted, Your Honor. The people have laid out their position in their briefs, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Friendly. Most of my questions are for your adversary. Mr. Lowell, tell me, does anybody actually believe psychics are for real?
Yes, of course, Judge. My client's a professional. She's not a charlatan. There are plenty of people that believe in psychic abilities, why including the detectives that were investigating the incident at issue in this case.
Well, if psychics are so great, why aren't they rich? Why don't they guess the lottery?
I predict your hyperbole will work better with the jury. Now, Mr. Lowell, do you have any precedent, any at all, where direct evidence has been given as to psychic powers in a court of law?
Yes, I do, Judge. There's that famous case in Pennsylvania. A psychic was permitted to testify concerning her psychic abilities in a malpractice case.
Sure, but in that case, the judge specifically warned the jury that it should not speculate on whether the plaintiff actually had psychic powers. And then he overturned the jury's verdict on the grounds that it had been unduly influenced by her testimony.
But there's no case anywhere in any court where a court has specifically precluded a psychic from testifying as to her psychic abilities. And you know, there's that case in upstate New York, we said it in our briefs, in Watkins Glen, where the prosecution used a psychic to assist in jury selection. That was a criminal case.
That was a matter of having an observer in the gallery during jury selection, not presenting live testimony to establish a direct element of a case. Besides, it's my understanding in that case that the defense never really objected, so the court never made any ruling. That's not much of a precedent.
There's not much out there, Judge.
You see, I don't want the jury to speculate as to whether psychics are actually real. The only question is whether your client had any legal justification for gunning down an unarmed man. I'm not going to let this trial degenerate into a battle over whether some premonition can justify murder.
But Judge, our defense isn't based on junk science. There are plenty of folks that believe in psychic abilities. Defense lawyers, prosecutors, even some judges. In fact, the New York State Bar Association issued a report that specifically said that a defense lawyer could use any type of expert, including a psychic, to assist in the defense of a case.
You want this court to rely on the ruling of a bar association? You're going to have to do better than that, Sonny. What you're really telling us is that you have no case, not a single case, where somebody claiming to be a psychic was allowed to excuse a homicide on the ground that her perception of the victim's aura and nothing else put her in reasonable fear of her life.
That's true, isn't it, counsel? You're asking me to make new law by allowing a jury to speculate as to whether or not your client has some mystical, intangible power that can't be corroborated by anything concrete.
Well, what I don't understand is why you simply don't plead her not guilty by reason of insanity.
Because my client isn't insane.
Well, one of the three of you is. Why not let it just be her, counselor?
Listen, Judge, I'll take it back to my client, but I need some time. Give me a few days, I'll speak with her.
I'll give you the weekend. The trial's starting on Monday morning. My court starts promptly at 9:15. We break for lunch from 12:45 to 2:15. We're done with the afternoon session by 4:15. I hear any points that counsel has to make, and we're done by 4:16. Now, I should let you know, before we go, that I'm pretty much convinced to disallow any reference to defendant's so-called psychic abilities, and I'm also inclined to preclude any questioning of any jurors about their attitudes about paranormal phenomena. All right, have a nice weekend, gentlemen. I'm off to the golf course. We're starting trial Monday morning. Jury selection starts at 9. I make them hurry, so I never worry that I'll get out of court on time. I'll be at my finest Monday morning, spruced up and looking in my prime. Lawyers abhor me, but jurors adore me, 'cause I get out of court on time. When I'm presiding, keep your phones off. When I'm deciding, don't you even cough. Don't be delinquent Monday morning. Make sure your shoes have got to shine. Pay close attention or you'll risk detention, 'cause I get out of court. We all get out of court. For God's sake, let's get out of court on time. Don't ask for feedback. be a dunce, 'cause we're starting trial Monday morning. Utmost authority is mine. Convict or acquitter, I'll be your Twitter. If we get out of court, we'll all get out of court. Yes, let's all get out of court.
Of Oliver Wendell Holmes, we're in deep shit.
We've got no defense and only this weekend to come up with a theory. I can't understand why Marty won't plead the insanity defense. I gave him a case in Wisconsin where a guy tried to kill someone with a sword who he claimed was stealing his psychic energy. He got off by reason of insanity. We could tailor the facts of our case to fit right within that case.
I've spent hours with Marty ever since the conference with the court. I've argued till I was blue in the face and got nowhere. The client won't have it. She says a defense of insanity would be a betrayal of everything she stands for, of her mother, of her grandmother. And Marty goes along.
So what do we do?
Well, we gotta find a case, a theory, something that will allow her to tell her story to the jury.
Checked out everything I could think of that would give her a full defense to a murder charge. I can't find anything that fits.
Wait a minute. You said a full defense. What about a partial defense? You know, I was thinking there's a theory in the law in New York. It's an affirmative defense. It's codified by statute. It's called extreme emotional disturbance. You hardly ever see it used, but I think it's still in the law. I'm not certain.
Well, what is it?
I know. I studied it in law school. It's an affirmative defense. You're right, it is codified by statute. It allows the jury to reduce a charge of murder to one of manslaughter. But first, the defendant must prove that she was more than just angry. She has to prove that she was so emotionally disturbed that she was out of control. But what's key for us is that the judge allow her to raise the defense and tell her story to the jury, whatever it is, and that she had a reasonable excuse for extreme emotional disturbance. And what's absolutely critical, what you suggested, is that what's reasonable is determined from the defendant's viewpoint.
So, Alice can testify that she was so terrified of the aura emanating from her victim that she lost control, and that's why she took out her revolver and shot him in the head.
That's right. That's right. And once she gets to tell her story, it's up to the jury.
Yeah, but even so, it just reduces the charge to manslaughter.
For murder, yeah, I know, but you know, manslaughter is better than murder, and let me tell you something. Once the jury gets the story, it can do any damn thing it wants to do.
So you want us to find some cases?
That's right. We're gonna work this weekend. We'll put together a brief. We'll present it Monday morning just before jury selection. Then watch the judge eat his words. I'm telling you, Marty will be able to open to the jury with this theory. He'll be able to put witnesses on to substantiate the theory. I think we're back in business.
EED, here we come.
All rise. The Supreme Court of the State of New York is now in session. The Honorable Abner Doubleday presiding.
Call the next case.
People v. Alice Meadows.
Ready for the people, Your Honor.
Ready for the defense?
Now, before we bring up a panel of potential jurors, I'm going to rule on the people's motion to preclude any reference to the defendant's psychic abilities. Mr. Friendly, I've read the defendant's new submission, and I'm sorry to say I've changed my mind.
What?
Her reliance on extreme emotional disturbance as an affirmative defense to intentional murder changes the equation entirely. So I'm going to deny your motion.
But Your Honor.
There's no need to argue. The precedent from the Court of Appeals is perfectly clear and long-standing.
So you're going to let her testify to this mumbo-jumbo?
Mr. Friendly, I can't keep it out. Testimony as to her so-called psychic energy is proper. According to the case law that was cited by the defendant, the jury is required to look at any emotional disturbance she suffered from her perspective. Whether it was reasonable to fear for her life, or whether or not that fear was itself reasonable, those are questions for the jury. Mr. Friendly, I don't like it. I don't even agree with it, but the law is perfectly clear that these are issues for the jury. And for the jury to understand her state of mind, they have to hear her side, what she was thinking when she pulled that trigger. Bottom line, I can't keep it out of the case, so everything comes in. But of course you knew that already, right, counsel? All right, let's pick a jury.
Your Honor, the people call Samuel Levine.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please tell the jury and the court your name and your position.
I'm Samuel Levine. I'm sitting right here in this chair.
No, I mean your job.
I am a New York City police detective on assignment to the Port Washington Police.
Now, detective, you and your partner were the investigating officers in the Thompson case, isn't that right?
That's right.
And did you find any weapon on or near the late Mr. Thompson's body?
No, we didn't.
And did you speak in the course of your investigation? Did you question Ms. Meadows in detail about the events surrounding the shooting?
Well, you have to understand from the start, my partner and I were told by the captain to get in touch with her and ask for assistance in a missing persons case where they feared foul play. And when we investigated her, she said the guy had come into her office and stormed past her secretary, told her he knew she'd accused him of murdering his wife, and that she was a psychic and wanted him in jail, and that he wasn't going to stand for it.
And what did she say happened next?
Well, she said she was scared out of her mind. She grabbed a gun out of her desk drawer and let him have it. She said it happened almost instantaneously.
But as far as the threat goes, did he make any, as far as what she told you, he never made a threat verbally. Those words never came out of his mouth. Isn't that correct?
Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer.
What do you mean?
Well, we both pushed her on the point, me and my partner. According to her, he made no threatening gestures before she pulled the trigger, but his aura, she said, was frightful. She interpreted it, according to her, as one of extreme violence, indicating that he planned to strangle her right then and there.
Detective, have you ever seen an aura?
No.
Do you know what an aura is?
No.
Until this case, had you ever even heard the word?
No.
If it had been up to you and your partner, would you have even called a psychic to help you in the Thompson missing persons case?
No.
Did you or your partner believe in psychics or psychic phenomena?
No. We only talked to her because the captain insisted.
No further questions.
Tell me, Detective, can you explain to the jury how the defendant just happened to pick Mr. Thompson's face out of the photographic lineup you presented her with?
Well, no, I can't.
All right, have you an explanation as to how she was able to point you to the vicinity where the body of Mrs. Thompson was found?
I didn't even have an explanation for how she knew there was a body. We sure didn't, although we had our suspicions.
Was it your action to close the case on Mr. Thompson?
No. I mean, my partner and I both agreed we had nothing to go forward on with just what Ms. Meadows said, but the actual decision to close the case came from above my pay grade.
All right. If you have another missing persons case, and that appears to raise a suspicion of foul play, and the decision is up to you, would you call psychic for assistance? A person, for example, like Miss Meadows?
Objection, that calls for speculation.
You open the door, I'll allow it.
Go ahead, Detective. Would you call in a psychic like Miss Meadows?
Yeah, I think I would. I just don't know how she did it.
All right, now turning to your investigation in this case, did you investigate whether the defendant had any connection with Mr. or Mrs. Thompson prior to helping you find the body?
Well, yeah, we did, and there was none. Her only involvement came because the captain asked us to bring her in for help.
How much did she charge the Port Washington Police Department for her services?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. She says she never charges the police. That she makes a point of it.
Well, what about publicity? Did she want the newspapers, radio, or television to learn of her involvement so she could get more clients?
Yeah, just the opposite, actually. She told us very specifically that she didn't want any publicity at all. She was really worried for herself and her family. I just wish that boneheaded partner of mine hadn't told Thompson that she was the one that reported him.
No further questions.
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. We'll take our usual mid-morning recess for milk and cookies. 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll resume this deathless game.
All rise.
Well, old Harry had a good morning, but the forces of justice will have their day. Make no mistake about it. They're going to have to put the defendant on the stand next. They have no choice. And when she starts testifying, starts getting into that psychic mumbo-jumbo, it'll be Katie bar the door. Marty Lowell's going to take her on direct, and he'll try to hornswoggle the jury. But it'll never work. He'll never get a sophisticated... Once I start my cross-examination, she'll be on her way to state prison. Marty will never convince a sophisticated New York jury that somebody can claim to be a psychic and shoot down an unarmed, innocent man in cold blood for no better reason than that some mystical aura told her that he was going to kill her. But he'll try. Believe me, he'll certainly try. He'll try the old razzle-dazzle, razzle-dazzle-em. Give him an act with lots of flash in it, and the reaction will be passionate. Give him the old hocus pocus, bead and feather 'em. But I'll wipe the magic from their eyes. I'll show that his hinges all are rusting, and that in fact he's just disgusting. Razzle dazzle 'em, but I'll make 'em all wise. Give 'em the old razzle dazzle 'em. Give 'em a show that's so splendiferous, all the jurors will grow vociferous. Give 'em the old flim flam flummox, try hard to fool 'em, but they'll see the truth and they'll well know the score. Throw 'em a fake and a finagle, but I'll prove to them he's just a bagel. Razzle dazzle 'em, but they'll even the score. Give 'em the old double whammy, daze and dizzy 'em. Since my days in school with the likes of him, I know how to get the best of 'em. Give 'em the old three-ring circus, stun and stagger 'em. He'll be in trouble, no matter his stance. Though he is stiffer than a girder, I won't let her get away with murder. Razzle dazzle 'em, razzle dazzle 'em, razzle dazzle 'em, but I'll end up the star.
Well, Harry, how did it go today?
Oh, it went really well. The prosecution put on this detective. He did a better job for us than he did for them. You know, I think we might even pull this thing off.
You know, I saw your client on TV today.
Yeah?
She's a very good-looking woman. You never mentioned that.
Well, it's just another case to me, that's all.
Well, you're certainly spending a lot of time with her.
Well, sure, I was trying to get it a okay an insanity defense. I got nowhere.
Is she married?
Yeah?
Then why are you so involved in her case? That's not like you.
Oh, what, are you jealous?
Well, I haven't seen you this animated by a case in many years.
For God's sake, she's 40 years younger than me.
Oh, you noticed the age difference, did you?
I can't believe we're having this conversation.
Harry, do you really believe that she has psychic powers, that she has the, superstitious energy that's unavailable to the rest of us?
No, of course not. It's just an interesting case, that's all.
Tell me what you really think.
For goodness sakes, she talks to spirits. Now, who can believe stuff like that?
Well, you're hoping the jury can.
You know, when we were doing voir dire, half the jurors, we asked them, do you believe in psychics? Half the jurors said yes, the other half said no. It's just a crapshoot. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'll tell you this, I don't think she'll be convicted of murder. Even the judge is starting to come around. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets a relatively short jail sentence.
Well, when does she testify?
Tomorrow. Marty's going to take it. They're both believers.
Well, that's good. At least the case will be over soon and you can go back to your normal, boring self.
It's nice to be appreciated.
As ready as she's gonna be.
Well, what does that mean?
Listen, she's terrified of being made to look like a fool when she gets on the stand to talk about her psychic abilities, and she's also deathly afraid she's going to be convicted, and so am I.
I thought you were a believer. I mean, doesn't she know she's going to be acquitted?
No, she doesn't.
You mean she doesn't know if she's going to jail after this or is going to go home?
Not any more than you or I.
Huh. Are you ready?
I better be. I need to learn to trust myself. Pressure. I'm not like anybody else. Pressure. I've only had to run so far, so good. But I will come to a place where the only thing I feel are loaded guns to my face, and I'll have to handle pressure. My wife may call me paranoid. Pressure. It's just that I cannot avoid pressure. The judge will use this trial as his crusade. Now here I am with my defense and some Peter Pan advice. No, I don't want no disgrace, so I'll have to handle pressure. All prepared and ready to go. Psych 1, Psych 2, what do you know? So my client isn't so clean. She's not so discreet. What does it mean?
I'll tell you what it means. Pressure! Pressure!
Must ask for help, I'm not alone.
Pressure!
No need to answer on my own.
Pressure!
Not sure I'll have some cosmic rationale. But here I am in the night, 2 men out and 3 men on. Nowhere to look but inside, where I'll have to handle pressure. One, 2, 3, 4, pressure.
All rise!
Good morning, counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Been on trial a week now, Mr. Lowell. How much longer for the defense?
Oh, we only have one more witness, Judge. We want to call the defendant herself to the stand.
Oh, I must say I've been awaiting this moment with great anticipation. Let's get started.
The defense calls Alice Meadows to the stand.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good morning, Alice.
Good morning.
Tell me, for how many years have you been a practicing psychic with an ability to read and interpret auras?
Well, all my life. I don't remember a time when I didn't.
Did you receive any training?
No, I was born this way.
Now, you were present during the testimony of Detective Samuel Levine, were you not?
I was?
Were his statements concerning your involvement in the Thompson missing persons case accurate?
Yes, they were.
Now, according to Detective Levine, you found the location of Mrs. Thompson's body through an examination of an aura emanating from a blouse you've been given, is that right?
Correct.
And you claimed her husband had strangled her during a violent argument, again, based on the auras you had seen and interpreted from a photograph of Mr. Thompson and his wife. Is that true?
Yes.
Could you please describe for the jury what auras are?
Well, they're composed of different colors.
And where are they?
Well, they're around everything I see.
Around me?
Yes, it's a glow that surrounds everything. I never remember a time when I looked at someone or something and didn't see it. It surrounds the entire body, it fits around the entire body, and each one is a different size with different colors.
And how do you know what the different colors mean?
Well, I never remember learning how to speak, and yet I understand spoken language. I don't remember ever learning to delineate the colors of an aura. I've just always known.
Now, what was your normal method of working with the police?
So the police would come to me and they would bring me a photograph, and if there had been a violent act, it would leave an impression, well, almost like a negative that I could read and interpret.
Did the police give you articles of clothing that had been worn by a victim?
Almost always, yes, yes. And if there had been a very strong color in the aura, it would leave a very strong impression. Well, for instance, a ring. If somebody wore a ring their whole life but nothing ever happened to them, it would just be some ring. But if another person wore the same ring for 2 minutes and they were hit by a car, that's the impression of the aura that I would see.
And in general, were police departments satisfied with the work you did?
Not always. I don't always see everything that the police think is important. When you're psychic, you just don't see everything.
Now, did there come a time when you were in contact with a captain from the Port Washington Police Department?
Yes.
And could you please tell the court and jury about that?
Well, sure. This man called me and he introduced himself and he asked for my help with a missing persons case.
Was this an unusual occurrence?
No, I would get such calls from the police department on average of once a week. So I went down to the station and I met with 2 detectives. They showed me a series of photographs, almost like a lineup, and they asked if I had any knowledge of who might have had an occasion to interact with the missing person.
Now, please give the court and the jury your best memory, your best recollection of everything that transpired in the police station during that meeting.
Sure. Well, one of the photographs jumped out at me right away. The aura of the man in the photograph, well, it was just terrifying. It turned out that he was the husband of the victim. And then they showed me a picture of her, and they gave me a blouse that she had worn, and I could tell immediately that she and her husband had had a terrible row, over the course of which he had strangled her and killed her. I told the police when it had happened and the vicinity of where they could find the body, and then I left.
Did there come a time when you met the man in the photograph?
Yes. About a week later, he burst into my office right past my secretary.
And did the 2 of you have a conversation?
We did. He said that he knew that I was a psychic called in by the police to find his wife, and that I had accused him of killing her and hiding the body, and he said he knew I wouldn't be satisfied until I'd convinced the police of his guilt, and he wasn't going to stand for it.
Did you respond?
I did. I said nothing I had said to the police could be used against him in a court of law, and I demanded that he leave my office immediately. But his aura was terrifying. It revealed to me that nothing I could say or do would sway him from what he intended to do.
And what was that?
Well, to kill me, to murder me, just as he had done to his wife.
So what did you do?
And to do so before I left his office.
So what did you do?
Well, I was in a panic. I reached into my desk drawer where I kept a revolver. I picked it up and I fired it. The whole thing from beginning to end must have just been a few seconds. Well, then I picked up the phone and I called the police detectives immediately and told them what had happened and to come over.
No further questions, Your Honor. Your witness.
Ms. Meadows, you claim to be a professional psychic, isn't that right?
Yes.
Did you earn any sort of license or certification as a psychic or aura reader?
Well, there's no professional training for what I do, if that's what you mean.
No certification body as there is, for example, in medical specialties?
No, none.
Now, when you see an aura, is it there all the time?
Well, yes, it's always there. You look at me, you see my hair, my necklace, my shoes. I look at you, I see your hair, your jacket, your shoes, all surrounded by a glow.
Does everyone and everything have an aura?
Well, yes, every living thing has an aura that's stronger than things that are inanimate, but yes, everything has an aura all the time.
Now, when people are willing to pay you for your psychic and aura reading services, do you start out by simply talking to them?
No, I use a crutch. It makes people really uncomfortable if you just stare at them for a long time. So I use a deck of cards, a piece of jewelry, an old shoe. It just makes people feel more comfortable, but all I really have to do is look at a person's aura to read it.
Do you ever use crystal balls or a black cat?
No, and I don't have a cauldron in my kitchen. Look, this is not a sideshow. Some people are just born this way.
Ms. Meadows, do you bend spoons?
Your Honor, I object. He's badgering the witness. Tell him to back off.
Mr. Friendly, you're getting your aura all over.
Ms. Meadows, do you bend spoons?
Only in the dishwasher.
Right, so let's turn to the events that led to this prosecution. Specifically, Mr. Thompson's visit to your office.
Okay.
When he came to see you, was he carrying any sort of weapon?
No.
Did he make any kind of threat of bodily harm?
Well, only through his aura.
So he made no statement verbally that gave you any cause for alarm. Isn't that right?
Look, just the mere fact that he was in my office unannounced and angry was cause for alarm. But his aura revealed to me that nothing I could do would stop him from killing me, from strangling me, just as he had done to his wife.
Of course, we have only your word that he had strangled his wife. The police could find no evidence to back up your accusation. Isn't that right?
That's what they told me.
Now, how long did it take you to pull out the revolver and shoot him?
I really don't recall. The whole thing happened very quickly.
Had you ever used that revolver before?
Never.
And why did you have a revolver to begin with?
Look, I saw literally thousands of clients over the years. I never knew who might have any occasion to come after me, and I felt like I needed protection. I had a license for my weapon, but until Mr. Thompson showed up, I never had any occasion to use it.
So for 2 solid years, you had a loaded revolver in the top drawer of your desk. Is that right?
Yes.
And if it wasn't for Mr. Thompson's aura, as you interpreted it, he'd probably be alive today. Isn't that right?
I suppose so. I really don't know.
That's odd, you being a psychic and all.
Objection, Your Honor.
Quite right. Very funny, but save it for summation, Mr. Franklin.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No redirect, Your Honor. The defense rests.
The people have no rebuttal.
Very good. Members of the jury, obviously you understand by now why I have repeatedly instructed you not to discuss any aspect of this case with the other jurors or with your friends and family after court. You should not be influenced by anything except the evidence, which is only just now concluded, and my instruction to you on the law, which will take place tomorrow. So, one last time, I'm going to instruct you not to discuss any facet of this case until we reconvene tomorrow. Mr. Lowell will give his summation promptly at 9:30, followed immediately by the people. We will then break for milk and cookies, and I will give you my instructions on the law. So, you are free and excused for the day. Enjoy your evening at home, or wherever you may be.
This court will adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Judging ain't easy.
Are you worried?
Anytime a jury is deliberating that length of time, of course you're worried.
Well, you were pretty optimistic when the case ended. What happened?
Well, the judge killed us with his charge. He kept telling the jury that while we may have made out some mitigating factors for murder, manslaughter was still on the table.
Well, what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I expect that the jury is going to come in for us and find that she acted in self-defense, but I've got to admit, I'm worried.
Why is it taking so long?
Listen, it only takes a couple of jurors who are stubborn enough to want to follow what the judge tells them is the law. But I expect the jury to find that she has psychic powers, and therefore that Thompson was a cold-blooded killer, and if they buy that, they buy the whole ball of wax, and she walks on the basis of self-defense.
Well, I know you're worried, but what does Marty think?
Well, Marty's a basket case. But strangely enough, the client is pretty much serene. She thinks she did a good job on the stand. She wasn't ridiculed as she expected to be, and she's told me that she'll accept whatever the jury decides.
Doesn't she know?
She hasn't got a clue. So much for extrasensory perception. Come on, babe, let's go to bed. Tomorrow's another day.
More coffee, Harry?
No, I'll wait till all our guests arrive.
I'm anxious to finally meet Alice.
And Marty will be here. After all, this is a victory celebration.
Well, you certainly were right about the jury.
Yeah. There was one guy, one holdout for 3 days this guy held out. He really wanted to follow the judge's instructions. But, you know, the jury finally brought him around. The judge was beside himself, but what was he going to do?
It's amazing.
Here come the guests.
I knew she told it
All right. Enough talk. It's time for some bubbly.
Not that bottle, Harry.
Oh, why the hell not?
Well, just trust me, you don't want to open it.
Oh, come on now. Don't tell me you think the bottle has an aura.
Well, it's not the bottle's aura that troubles me, it's the mouse inside.
Singular diviner, every aura that she reads. One chilling little murder after which she succeeds. One look and suddenly you'll be within her sights. You know you could find yourself in the worth of
Ta-da!
I got this from the Hitchcock movie 39 Steps.
Yeah? But your coat? I just saw that.
Pardon?
I just saw that.
Just saw what?
I just saw that.
I'm probably going to go to the bathroom. I hope.